My name is Mick Darymple, and I was the ASA Executive Director in 1987-88, and I was an ASA Director from the University of Arizona in 1986-87, and actually worked with the organization for a couple of years in advance of that as well. One of the most significant things that we did as student leaders that I'm most proud of was actually dreaming up the Arizona Financial Aid Trust. We felt that there was a financial aid crisis going on in our university system. There was no statewide financial aid system for higher education. And so we also knew the politics of the Board of Regents. We knew that they wanted something, but they didn't know what it was. And we also felt that there was an immediate need, and the Board of Regents were focused on 20 years later. And so we actually dreamt up this plan where we would assess, then not only the legislature would contribute, because that was an extremely hard thing to conceive of, was the legislature actually funding money for financial aid. But we felt that we could do it by saying that we put our money where our mouth was, and actually the students would come up with half the money. So we actually kind of guilted them into it. And then the second thing was, since the Regents wanted long-term financial aid and we wanted immediate financial aid, we also designed this plan such that half the aid was going to be dispersed immediately and half of it would be put into an endowment for 20 years later. So what's really nice is, I don't know, 3 or 5 years ago, I just started doing some research and found out that yes, the Arizona Financial Aid Trust was still going on, and actually the matches have been doubled or tripled and all sorts of things had changed, but this thing was actually funding over 3,000 students a year to get a college education. And that was a very rewarding thing to understand. And I think that right there kind of signifies the impact of, you're not making decisions for today, you're making decisions for down the line. So the hardest thing to do is, as a student, you're thinking about your next final or your next paper, your next grade, and it's all immediate. And you have to think from a student leadership standpoint that what you're really doing is you're creating the future. So the reality that you're living today is something that somebody else created years ago. You're creating the next reality. The Arizona Students Association plays an important role for a number of reasons. One is the legislature, the regents, the governor, they see that as the organization representing the students. So you have to realize that you're naturally, one voice for the students statewide. Two, students do have common issues, and it's important to focus on those common issues. And you're only got limited time, and you only have limited audience with the decision makers. So it's most important to concentrate on the issues that you do have in common, that you can agree upon, and there's plenty of those. So those can occupy your time, and let the individual schools work on ones that are particular to their university. But the ones that are common themes are the ones that you should focus on as a statewide organization, or that you're going to get the most benefit out of. And then also, it shows a maturity and a willingness to come together and to say, okay, well, we may not be 100% on everything together, but there are these things that we can come together on, and it shows maturity from a policy standpoint that you're willing to step above your individual school's needs and think about the university system as a whole. And since the regents and to an extent the administrators, and then especially the board, the legislature and the governor, they're thinking of it as a system as a whole, and that's what they need to worry about. And so they'll appreciate that you're working from their perspective. What's really important is you are the eyes on the ground for the policymakers, so that they understand how their decisions are impacting the reality on the ground. And that's the value that you add. So it's important to be well researched and to have good policies, but it's also important to remember that you're the only ones that can provide that student perspective, and that's what you're valued for. So don't ever forget that's your voice. Don't become too much of a policy wonk to the point where you don't seem like a student anymore. It actually helps, it plays to your advantage to be a student as well.